Welcome to the Pathway to 17 Summit. This is a global virtual event focused on bringing together thought leaders, problem solvers, innovators, industry experts, and practitioners working to solve the world's greatest challenge and drive progress for the SDGs. Our focus today is on innovative and inclusive fintech, and the stream has been cultivated by the Alliance of Digital Finance and Fintech Associations. Alliance DFA is a global hub uniting regional and national associations to foster knowledge exchange, create synergies, and amplify impact in the digital finance and fintech sector. By empowering our members with the resources to impact local markets, Alliance DFA strengthening the digital finance ecosystem globally, enabling the development of inclusive and responsible digital financial products and services. My name is João Gaspar, and I'm the board chair of the Alliance and president of Mozambique Fintech Association, and also founder of a fintech um, in Mozambique. This panel will focus on fintech face significant hurdles in their development, growth, and scaling efforts. They are crucial for driving innovation and fostering competition. The approach that we want to seek is to how can we tackle these barriers and support both emerging startups and scaling ventures. That's the question that we want to address in this panel. With me, I have four colleagues. First of all, Raquel Nogueira da Silva. She is a manager at Portugal Fintech, and Portugal Fintech is a network of individuals and companies, from startups to incumbents, dedicated to the fintech ecosystem. Jasiel Martin-Odoom is the African Investment Officer at Accion Venture Lab. Accion Venture Lab is an early stage investor and inclusive fintech, providing seed first capital and strategic support to innovative startups. I have also Alex Simuyandi, principal at Emerald Africa Financial Facilities, as a financial facility providing debt to early stage digital innovators based in sub-Saharan Africa who are enabling greater access to finance for rural SMEs. And last but not least, Alex Panikan is Deputy CEO at Luxembourg House of Fintech, is an innovation advisor and board member and the keynote speaker, and he is passionate about building ecosystems in Luxembourg and supporting entrepreneurs from across the globe. Well, the first question that we have here, and we want to invite Raquel to talk about the challenges that you see in the Portuguese fintech ecosystem that lead to the foundation of Portugal Fintech Association. Raquel?
Okay, thank you so much, João, and all my fellow colleagues here at the panel. So, as João mentioned, I am part of a nonprofit association called Portugal Fintech that promotes the growth of the fintech ecosystem in Portugal. And we were created in 2016 by a group of founders, investors, and people involved in the financial industry, whether in insurance or banking ecosystem. And basically, in Portugal at the time, we had no information whatsoever of how big was the fintech ecosystem in Portugal. We didn't know how many startups were there, what businesses were they doing, what were their needs, were they raising capital, how much capital was being raised, how much revenue was it being created by them in Portugal and to the ecosystem. And so this group of people got together to start discussing how could we acknowledge and support this fintech ecosystem to grow. And basically, at the time, this was the biggest challenge was that we had no information whatsoever. So we didn't know what was happening in Portugal. And so what we did was to start organizing side events for the Web Summit, which is happening right now in Lisbon, in Portugal today. And basically, the association was also founded as a side event of the Web Summit in 2016. So it's really interesting that we're having this in this day today, in this week. So basically, we just started promoting on social media. We're having a side event for Fintechs, and we started calling investors. So this was the first step where we really got to know how big was the ecosystem. And from then, we started and really understanding and talking with the Fintechs at the time and to decide and see what were their challenges. And basically, those challenges were obviously financing. They had a struggle to either reach investors, or how could they improve their message to make it seem very clear? How could they improve their business financials to make it very clear to the investors how much money they needed to raise? So there was still a lot of missing information on the market on how they could prepare it for investors. So that was basically one of the major needs at the time. Obviously, regulation was at the time one of the biggest challenges, and still is. And what I think that from when we started this association and now what we see today, making this huge leap, is that today we see a big challenge in reaching corporates, so making the commercial process, because in Portugal it takes usually over a year to close a corporate client, and most of the early stage startups don't have this type of money that makes them allowed to live during a year until they get their first client. So it's still a biggest challenge that we have, is how can we support startups and these collaborations with potential clients in order to accelerate and close this gap, to make it more easy on them to sustain over a long period of time. So just to get started, because I feel like we could talk about this much more. I feel like this is one of the major challenges that we faced in the beginning, and obviously still facing at the moment, but we've seen also big improvement in it. You're muted, João.
Sorry. Thank you, Raquel. And I believe that the challenges are more or less the same around the globe. But I want to ask Alex about what are the challenges that you see the fintechs are facing in their growth and scaling process in different continents. Please, Alex.
Thank you. Obrigado, João. Congratulations to Raquel, because you've done an amazing job in the last years, and it's been a pleasure working with you, Raquel, in Portugal. So briefly about the LHoFT. So we are a foundation, not for profit, backed by the government of Luxembourg and 22 private bonds, mainly banks, insurance, and asset managers. Our main mission is to drive innovation in the financial industry. So my job is to find the most innovative companies all over the world and connect them with the industry in Luxembourg. So we digitalize this industry. A bit what Raquel is trying to do in Portugal, we are doing it in Luxembourg. Beyond that, we have an incubator. We incubate around 100 fintechs today, and we run 8 acceleration programs all over the year. And 2 of those acceleration programs, one is happening in Africa. We are, I think, one of the rarest acceleration programs in Europe dedicated to fintechs in Africa. We run it for the last 7 years. 85 fintechs went through that program, and we are running the program right now in Luxembourg. By the way, that's why my colleague Annabelle was meant to join, could not, because she's busy with 10 fintechs from Africa. And this year, we're also starting the program in Southeast Asia, because we had a lot of success in Africa, and now we moved to Southeast Asia. And next year, we are also opening LATAM. The program we done for fintechs and financial inclusion in Africa and Southeast Asia has 3 pillars. The first one is impact. So the entrepreneurs, they learn how to build the best business model and the best product, not just to make money, but also to have a social and positive impact on the local population. The second pillar is scalability. We want them to do good in the country, but we also want to do them good across the region. And for that, we work with different agencies, but we work a lot with regulators, because that's, I think, one of the big problems companies are facing, is to understand the regulation, not just in the country, but also across the region. So we work with central banks and regulators across those regions to teach those entrepreneurs and to help those entrepreneurs better understand the regulation. And the last pillar is funding. So we work with VCs, and Jasiel, I don't know why we don't work with you guys yet. Definitely we have to do it. We work with VCs across Africa and now Southeast Asia to help these entrepreneurs funding. But if you allow me, João, what is really lacking is sales competencies from those entrepreneurs. Scalability is all about sales. When we select our fintechs, and only in our acceleration program in Luxembourg and incubator, only 13% of companies applying at the LHoFT are taking our programs. It's even less for acceleration in Africa and Southeast Asia. So just for the African program, we have 460 applications and just 10 of them are selected. One of the key things beyond the innovation, beyond the team, beyond synergies, the one thing we are looking for is the capacity to sell, because they're going to have to sell to their employees, they're going to have to sell to the investors, and they're going to have to sell to their clients. So those three main capacity to selling, understanding regulation across the board, and getting the funding, those are the three key things for me that are the most important and the most challenging for those entrepreneurs. But Jasiel and Alex maybe have other opinions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. But I believe that one of the big challenges that every startup and fintechs are getting across the globe is accessing to finance, because the finance is the scale up and for implementing the project. And I believe that Alex and Jasiel have something to say about that, because they are in that space, financing, investing in different stage of the growth of the startups. So what can you say about that? Alex first, and then Jasiel, please.
Thank you, João, and great to be on this esteemed panel. So Emerald Africa financing facility sits within Small Foundation, which is an Irish-based philanthropic family foundation, who work on rural poverty in sub-Saharan Africa, mainly through institutions that engage with small and medium enterprises. So we see these small businesses as really the catalyst of change within the continent. One thing that we've noticed over time, working with a whole range of partners who are providing financing or skills and capacity building, technical assistance, is that access to capital has, let's say, the last 5 or 10 years, 15 years, improved greatly on the continent for ventures. They're able to access more money at an earlier stage and at a smaller ticket size than they have in the past. But it's still not perfect. There's still a long way to go. And Jasiel at Accion will be able to tell their story and the amazing work that they're doing. And there's more of them now than there were 10 years ago, but there's still not enough. So one of the things that we set out to do is to solve a particular problem, which is access to debt. So those companies that are offering financial services, so maybe loans, small loans to rural enterprises, smallholder farmers, they are at the moment using their very scarce equity resources, so the money that they've raised that they can use to run their operations, they're using that to fund these products as well. So we're saying as a foundation, is there something that we can do to come in and to support these early stage companies that have proven their model, that understand the costs and the revenues associated with providing these loans, and provide them with debt that they can then use for lending. So it's a wholesale debt capacity. And that enables them to keep their equity. It enables them to continue to grow for longer. And it also enables them to show track record so that they can go to other investors like Jasiel and say, look, we can prove that this product can scale up a little bit more. We can show some traction, and hopefully that will enable them to raise money in a more efficient way at that point. So we come in at an early stage and we provide them with debt for their on-lending capacity. And we hope to see our funding as a bridge to the next round of finance, so that they can then expand and prove that they're able to manage those that quite complicated part of their business.
Okay, thank you, Alex. And Jasiel, what is the view about this, about the action? What is what you are doing about that financing?
Sure. Absolutely. So maybe before I get into that, I'll take a step back and talk a bit about what we do here at Accion Venture Lab. So almost as a foil to Alex, we look at equity investing into pre-Series A, really early stage fintech startups across global emerging markets. So outside of Africa, we're also invested in South and Southeast Asia, Latin America, parts of the US, Middle East, and the GCC region broadly. And I'd say as we think about being early stage investors who are looking to really come in at a seed stage, a company's probably no more than 3 years old at the time we come in and looking to be a part of their journey for the next, call it 7 to 10 years. I'd say that the risks that we see across the different stages of growth in our portfolio companies primarily starts with product market fit at the beginning stages. So being able to have a product that people actually want you to offer to them and they want to pay for, I think it's a very difficult thing, especially in Africa, where you have to keep in mind the middle class of the population hasn't grown in the last 20 to 30 years. GDP per capita is 10 times, some places 50 times less than more developed market. So the value proposition to a potential customer and the value for their dollar or for their currency is a lot higher. So seeing companies that are able to actually find a product that fits the needs of the market, I think is the very first challenge we see. And the second one actually related to what Alex P was talking around sales team efficiencies. I think really thinking about, okay, now that you have a product that people want, how do you sell more of that to more people? How do you onboard them onto your platform? And we found that's another area where scalability and onboarding continues to be difficult for companies that are looking to expand fintech solutions in Africa. I think a big part is talent, to Alex's point, that we still it's still early in the fintech days of Africa, where there's not a lot of talent that have expertise, particularly in selling to African consumers, because quite different from more developed markets, the African consumer is a lot more price sensitive, is a lot more offline, is trying to sell tech-first solutions to that customer base, a very different skill set. And I think I've layered atop all across that, and why this panel is really important is this conversation around access to capital across the life cycle, right? So as you're early stage fintech, you might need to talk with Alex because you need someone to be able to help you prove that your financing product is high quality, can scale. But then when you get past Alex, you want to raise initial equity rounds. You come to people like myself, you work with Alex P, think about how do you find more VCs to invest in you. But the question really comes, well, now Series A, what happens? Series B, what happens? Because as we think about African startups in general, very different from other markets, their life cycles are more like 7 to 10 years. So really trying to find access capital that can be with you from beginning all the way to growth stage. I think it's another risk that we see that portfolio companies often struggle with, but happy to pause here and answer some more questions later.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Oh, Jasiel, sorry. Well, but one of the things that we can have, or for sure you are all involved, is about innovation and how can innovation drive the new entrepreneurs and the new companies to overcome some of those difficulties, some of those challenges. So each of you, and starting with Raquel, what type of innovations are your organization doing and supporting for overcome these type of challenges and move forward in terms of developing the companies, developing the fintech industry? Raquel, and then the other colleague, please, Raquel.
Thank you. So I would definitely say that since we're mainly focusing on fintech hubs, we all realize the different needs from the different types of companies, depending on their verticals, B2B or B2C, their stage of growth, their needs, and the types of regulations that they're tackling and working on. So at Portugal Fintech, what we did was mainly to create 3 different areas of growth. We have the Portugal Fintech Report, where we mainly focus on showcasing the ecosystem as it is. So we try to promote as much as possible the companies that are part of our ecosystem. We try to share their differentiators, their use cases, their clients that they have already achieved, use examples of collaborations, make them write articles about the trends of the ecosystem. So we try to give them as much stage as possible in order to give them a lot of visibility and also use that as a channel for sales. So we can use it for them, and they can also use it to showcase their potential clients that, hey, are experts in these particular areas. On the other hand, we have the Fintech House, which is a physical hub in Lisbon, where we have over 100 startups as members. And from there, we mainly focus on supporting the startups with either a common membership of a hub where they get access, but as they want to use it with office hours, with experts, discounts, workshops, events, and all of that. And we also have specific programs. So programs just focusing on early stage startups where they get access to value proposition validation, business plan, access to legal advice on acquiring licenses. So really focusing on the early stages of their business. But then we realized it was also really important to focus on the later stages, as Jasiel was also mentioning. So Series A, Series B, even seed, it's quite considered, Series A is already considered like quite big in Portugal. So we created specific programs just to facilitate sales. So basically we have, for example, we gather 5 or 6 financial corporates in Portugal, banks and insurance companies, and we work with them the challenges that they want to share with the fintech ecosystem. And this can be payments, KYC, sustainability, cybersecurity, open banking. So it can be anything. And then we try to focus on finding the fintech startups that focus on these specific challenges. And for this reason, they already have to have some traction. They already have to have their product on the market and have some clients, because we need to showcase the corporate that this is a startup that already has a lot of traction and is ready to start collaborating right now. So these are also some sort of the programs that we have. And just to close, we also have, we worked with the 3 financial regulators in Portugal to launch a program that is called the FinLab, with the goal of just giving feedback from the financial regulators to the startups. So basically, Portugal Fintech organized and created the whole program in 2017 and is now fully managed by the regulators. So this is something really good. That's many years have passed and they're still managing on their own. And basically, the startups apply to enter the program, and then they enter into this big session, which can be kind of intimidating because it's just a lot of the regulators all suited up. And then the startup showcases their business, and then they receive this very detailed report on what they need to do to be compliant with the regulation, raising some potential areas that they need to focus on in order to be fully compliant, and also some sort of advice that if you partner with these types of entities, then you don't need to get this license and you can just go to the market right away. So this is a program that's also very, very useful to the startup, especially in their early stage, when they're early stage. So I would say like, there's still a lot of things that we can focus on, talent and marketing and all of these things, and also networking, which is super important. But I'd say like to highlight the ones that have more impact, I think these would be the ones. So
okay, thank you. Thank you, Raquel. And Alex P, what is your view about that, and what are the innovations that you are most supporting to drive this
Innovation, it's a very big word. We are not that innovative as Raquel. So what we've done in Luxembourg, and I think it worked very well, our fintech ecosystem is really boomed in the last years, since 2017, our foundation, is we didn't only try to build an ecosystem, we tried to strengthen a value chain. So we saw what are the needs of entrepreneurs. First, they need support. So we have an incubator, as I say, we have acceleration program for them. But then we also work with the regulator, just like Raquel mentioned. We have an innovation lab at the CSSF, the local regulator, and we work very closely with them. And then they need funding. So just at the LHoFT, I think we have 4 to 5 VCs incubated. We have our first LP who's investing in VCs just at the LHoFT, but we work with over 30 VCs across Europe and even more across the world. So, and of course, public funding. So we also work to help them get funding from the government, from the European Commission, on the granting side. So you have the support, the incubation accelerator, you have the regulation, you have the funding. Then
finance.
Exactly, the financing. And then we work on the research and development side project. We work closely with universities across the world to make sure that they can also develop innovative solutions. And the last point is talent. We have many programs to help them find talent with universities across Europe. So it's not so much about strengthening the ecosystem, it's about strengthening the value chain for them. And it works quite well. We advise the government of Canada, we advise the Central Bank of Egypt, we are working with the Rwanda government, Togolese, and now also with some governments in Southeast Asia to replicate what we've done in Luxembourg. So it's not innovative, but the approach is quite unique.
It's a whole program. It's a whole program that drives from the beginning to the end. Yeah.
You have to understand what are the stakeholders, what they're adding value to the ecosystem. Yes.
Yeah. And what about Accion? What Accion is doing about this, promoting innovation, and what innovation that are most effective in terms of driving the new companies on the market?
Absolutely, and thanks, João. And I think to Alex's point, innovation is a quite a big word. How we think about innovation as a team is we have an in-house team of ex-fintech operators and consultants whose role is really to support our seed-stage companies post-investment. So when we think about support, we're doing everything from helping them think through how they structure their governance processes, how they think about product prioritization, partnership development. To Alex's earlier point, sales strategy and roadmap is a big piece for us. And so our thinking around this, like we've been investing in emerging market fintechs for the last 13 years or so, sitting on boards of some of the biggest and fintech companies across emerging markets, be able to bring that expertise to bear. And the company that we invest in and we found has been one of the biggest markets for potential success for our portfolio companies, because not only do we allow them to make sure they're not making mistakes that we've seen other players make already, but we set them up for potential success and innovation areas that other companies in that industry may not have access to.
Yeah. And Alex, about you, about the Emerald Africa Financial Facility, what are you doing in that area?
Thanks. So the central insight that led us to be established really is around the product. So the innovation for us is the product that we're offering into the market. In more developed financial ecosystems, you would perhaps have banks or other commercial lenders partnering with these fintechs or agtechs and able to engage and offer them balance sheets so that they can grow. Unfortunately, this is something that is not as developed on the sub-Saharan African continent. It's banks have their own mandates. They sometimes lack the capacity to engage meaningfully with fintechs, and so we had to look around and see, okay, who is going to support these early stage companies? Who's going to come and provide them with this boost, and where can they then grow to afterwards? And banks and other commercial lenders do say that they are interested in engaging, and we've heard from Raquel and Alex P as well that other financial institutions see fintechs as an opportunity to partner with, but what they want is some kind of comfort and security that there is traction, that they are able to grow with them, that they're well run, and that they understand their regulatory requirements. So when we come in, that's something that we look at. We go through the regulatory requirements that they're operating within, making sure that they're licensed where they need to be and operating appropriately. I guess one of the things that's we spend a lot of time with our companies is looking at their unit economics. So does it make sense for them to be putting their products into the market? If they're offering loans to small companies, does that make sense? Can they give those loans out, get repaid in a way that's financially viable for them, but also makes sense for their customers? So we spend an awful lot of time looking at different structures, different mechanisms for repayment. So the innovation in really how they're delivering the product to their customers, how they're being repaid, how they're servicing them, and ultimately, does it also work for their customers? Because if the product price is too high or the tenor is too short, there are lots of things that might prevent it from being a successful sales strategy. So we spend a lot of time with our own product in the market, being quite distinct, offering from what other people are able to do, but then also making sure that the ventures that we're working with have a product that makes sense for their own customers, and that's really the innovation that we see and we're excited about in the market.
Yeah. Okay. But thinking about
can I ask you also to answer the question, João, in Mozambique?
Yeah, sure.
What have you done in Mozambique that's innovative?
Well, in Mozambique, we are just in an early stage, let's say, because the law it's very complex and it's very tight together with the regulators, and the law is quite new. The law that regulates the fintech industry or the aggregators and payment service provider and international remittance company are just 4 years old or something like that. And until now, there is only two companies full licensed in Mozambique because it's very complex to get the license and it's very time consuming for getting that. So the market in Mozambique in terms of fintech is not it's not yet stabilized or getting some kind of supportative. Okay, and there is a
So
lot of
it means
companies.
there is a lot of opportunities. That's how you should see it.
That's it.
Exactly.
That's it. You have,
Opportunities
yeah,
for Alex, for Jasiel, and Raquel.
that's true. That's true. But I can tell you, my company was the first one to be licensed, and it took me 465 days to get the license, the first level of the license. And and there is some other international companies. I can mention some names, but very well companies that are present in several countries in Africa that are just moving to Mozambique or getting market in Mozambique, and they are struggling with that problem. And then we have other problems, but we are facing that, and the Association of Fintechs in Mozambique are well positioned to that. We have a seat in central bank working groups for financial inclusion and for interoperability, things like that. But you see, the interoperability is not allowed yet for the fintech companies. So only the mobile money operators and the banks can be interoperable. So there are some fights that we are uh, fighting right now to push for the fintech industry in Mozambique. But you are right. There is a huge opportunity for that because there is a country with 30 million inhabitants. It's based, all the economy is based, or all the informal economy is based on mobile wallets, as you know, M-Pes and things like that. And the market for fintechs is just starting. So it's a very promising market for the future. Sure.
It's a great invitation. Thank you for that.
Okay, we can have more discussion about that. But let me also talk with you and ask your specific response for this question is what the fintechs must do to get more to be more attractive for financing and to scale up their products. What are the key points that fintechs must address themselves to be more exposed to the market and to get some more capacity to attract investment and to support their growth? Portugal, Luxembourg, and also the colleagues from more that are working more in Africa. Please, Raquel.
So this is a very there's so much to start from
To say
discussion. I would
just 2 or
say
3 points that we must
exactly,
focus on,
and then
that
we
the
can
fintech must
discuss all around them. I think it's very important that you should start as a startup. You should start creating a relationship with investors when you are not looking for it. Just get them to know you when you're not in the pursuit of financing, because in that way, when you need it, you already have an established you have
network or something like that.
yeah, exactly. You have like a more direct channel to engage with them directly, and they already know more or less what you're doing. So that would also accelerate some part of the process. And raising capital, it's a very time-consuming process. It's really, really tough. You're doing your pitch endless times. So really try to make that when you have those 5 minutes of attention from an investor, make them as better and as most productive as possible. Really showcase the problem that you're tackling, and how big is that problem? Is it worth solving or not? So really try to get those numbers and make them very realistic to showcase the problem, to showcase to the investors that it's a problem worth solving. And then what I think is one of the most important things is, why are you, like the founders, the persons that should be solving and following this business? this product and the startup, because in the end, investors are not only investing in a company, they are investing in the people that will go and use this problem and turn it into a solution that's profitable for investors. So I think that in the pitch, when you're trying to create these relationships with investors, you should always be at your best and showcase why you are the right person, and showcase a lot of confidence. That's also very important. I'll say that just to kickstart, this would be my recommendations, but I'm really excited to hear about the others of the panel.
Alex P, what is your suggestion for that? Your recommendation?
Maybe it's something that people don't think about, but get their house in order, get their house clean. Honestly, I've been in many investor meetings with brilliant fintechs, brilliant entrepreneurs, great traction, and the deal failed because investors were asking very basic questions. Do you have your shareholder agreement in order? Can I see it? Do you have the recruitment policy in order? Can I see it? Very, very basic administrative stuff that most entrepreneurs might not think. They have sales, they have traction, they have everything. But investors pay attention to those details, okay? Because it's also about risk taking. So they don't want to take risk in a company in a house that it's not clean from the inside out. So I don't know if you just resonate, and Alex, with what I'm saying, but some deals I saw some deals failing just because of some admin BS, in fact. So that would, based on what Raquel said, I totally agree with her, and I will let the floor to the others. But those are my insights.
That's very positive, yes. Jasiel, what is your view from the investor side? What are
Absolutely.
the key points?
I think Alex P started a conversation for me. I think the best thing to remember, especially in Africa, is that the funding slowdown is here. If you look at historically, just across the last 3-4 years or so, in last 3 quarters of this year, the most amount of money raised in Africa, the least amount of money raised in Africa since 2019 for tech startups. Fintech does continue to be the most funded sector, but I think the very first piece is that investors are looking at startups with a much higher bar for diligence. And so some of the table stakes things like your shareholder documents, make sure your founder agreements are together, making sure you can track where your financial products are coming from, and those things are kind of table stakes. But I think a few things that I'll add to just everything Raquel and Alex have said, in maybe 3 quick points. One, build your MVP quickly and cheaply. Don't spend a lot of time and a lot of capital building something super complex until you test that people want to pay you for it. I think as an African startup, like, think globally and act locally. The truth is that Africa is a mix of 54 different small countries. And so if you're going to build a company, you're going to have to be okay with building across different markets. I think, again, just keep in mind that funding is a lot slower now than it has been the last 3 or 4 years or so. It's important to maintain a lean team and maintain your sustainable unit economics. But at the end of the day, if you're selling $1 for 90 cents, you don't want to get to a point where you're overly dependent on investor dollars to be able to scale your business. Because when investors start to slow down, and we've seen that happen last year or so, companies die, right? Because they cannot continue to finance themselves. And so I'd say, think about these things and you continue to maintain sustainable business over time, you'll probably be in a better position as a fintech company than other competitors in the market.
Okay. And Alex, finally, from your side, and then we have some questions here. But Alex, what are your key points?
So to agree with everything that's just come before, really good points. I think to add to both Alex and Jasiel's point is transparency. Like, don't try and hide anything. Like, if you don't know the answer to something, say you don't know. Like, the investor can help you work through some things. So we'll have seen a bunch of similar businesses probably. So we might have insight, but I think that's something that I often see from very early stage investors who haven't gone through that relationship with an investor. So you do just need to be open. You will be asked for all kinds of documents. You need to be able to provide them. Another point is, and again, building what Jasiel was saying, be pretty realistic about what you're going to be able to achieve in the next time period. All investors see these crazy graphs of growth that you're going to expect, and we all just discount them by 90%. So start with an honest conversation. Investors, again, we're fairly experienced. We've seen what can be achieved and what can't be achieved. But if you really understand your market, as Raquel was saying, if you're really living the problem, and if you can show confidence in the solution that you're providing to the market, then an investor will respond to that, and we can understand the market opportunity from there. But I would say don't be confident, but don't end up putting numbers or theories in front of investors that are going to cause them to roll their eyes and move on to the next one. So I think it's a combination of really what everyone's said already, but it's particularly in Africa at the moment, it's a pretty tough funding environment. So you need to have a compelling pitch, but one that's realistic and matches lived experience on the ground.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple of questions here, and I ask our supporter to read the questions, and then each of you can answer. Please go ahead.
Thank you, João. So that was a great discussion. So now let's dive into questions that we have. So we have a question from Dauda Hamado. How can Fintech be more trained in the regulations process in French West Africa?
Okay, good question. And I believe that Alex P. from Luxembourg can give some questions about that. I don't know if you are involved in French Africa.
Yes, we run our acceleration program last year. So we usually done it in English, but last year we started to do it also in French for the West African countries. Two things. First of all, I guess talking with the regulator, even sometimes it's not easy. But also, we invited the UMOA during our acceleration program, because we always invite regulators to talk with entrepreneurs. And after half an hour ranting from other entrepreneurs to us, the regulator pointing finger, yeah, you don't do that, you're not innovative, you're not there. The guy calmly said, they say, do you know that your fintechs and this industry is maybe top 10 in my priorities? I have to make sure that the money doesn't devaluate, inflation. I have to make sure that food is put on the tables of most of the population. We have to make sure that there is not, money laundering, that the financial industry stays stable. They have all those priorities before innovation and fintech. So it's something that entrepreneurs also have to understand, that maybe fintech is not the first priority of those regulators. But having the dialogue with them is key. So you also understand what they expect from you. Some have tried, some sandboxes didn't work so well. As you mentioned, João, is not easy. But I don't have an answer, to be honest. Beside just being patient and understanding where is your place in the ecosystem, in the economy, and trying to have a dialogue with the regulator instead of just beating them up. It's funny, when fintechs are coming to Luxembourg, the first thing I'm doing is take them by hand and go see the regulator. And French especially, they're always afraid, and they say, why I haven't done anything wrong yet, So that's also the regulator to understand that they're not here just to beat you up. They're also an advisor to those companies, to those fintech entrepreneurs. So that's my intent.
Yeah, fine. Maybe Raquel can say something about the FinLab program, because that's the program that puts face to face the entrepreneurs and the regulators. And do you have any experience with a fintech company from French-speaking countries in Africa, or what have you done about that?
So unfortunately, I haven't had many experience with French-speaking companies coming to Portugal and being part of this regulation.
But they can. They can apply for that.
For sure, they can. I just haven't had that experience. But for sure, I think it's very important to stay close with the regulators, because for them it's also really important to understand what businesses are being done in their country. How can they support better these new innovations that are coming into place? So trying to find, or even collaborating and talking with the local hubs, fintech hubs, that could perhaps establish that connection with the regulators in a more formal way. Maybe it could be a good way for also the hub support these startups in getting a direct channel to the regulators. And then I think it takes a lot of previous research. Of course, it's very hard to understand these different regulations, but try also to connect and talk with as much people as possible that you might know that probably have passed through that experience, through that process. So networks like LinkedIn or events or networking sessions, universities, they're always very open, and there's always a lot of interesting people who might have been through that process and who would be willing to share their experience and their knowledge that could be useful for you. So I think it takes a lot of proactivity from the founder's side to connect with as much people as possible and try to get from the formal channels of connection with the regulators and these informal connections that could help in preparing better the approach to the regulators. Those would be my advice.
Okay, thank you, Raquel. Let's go to the second question, because I believe it's a very important question, and please go ahead, Ioani, put your question and we will have
So our second question is from Nogueira and Biale. In Ethiopia, Fintech is at its start stage and Fintech Association is just to be started. And I'm working at Nasir Microfinance that focuses on providing need-based financial services to SMEs. We only have one core banking for now and planning to launch DFS to address more customers and get cheaper deposits. We have only 20 physical branches concentrating only in Addis Ababa, capital city of Ethiopia. What advice can you provide, please?
Can I ask Jasiel for your comments about this particular case in Ethiopia? Jasiel?
For sure. And I'll have everything I say by saying that we don't invest in Ethiopia and don't really have any specific geographic expertise in the industry. I will, however, the biggest suggestion we think about future markets is two main things. One, to Alex's P's point, what is the regulator's position to innovation? I think that part of the conversation is one that fintech investors can't do much about. I think it's a conversation around associations like the Fintech Association that's restarted, coming up together, other founders building those active relationships with regulators, because most investors are investing in companies for the potential of returns. And so if you're in a market where the regulators are anti-innovation, it gets really difficult. And the second piece is really building out a pipeline of local-based capital for really early-stage investments. I think most of us are looking at a pipeline of potential opportunities, and for a new market, the difficult part is how do we get started? So that could be, as you think about angel networks coming together to seed really early-stage interesting companies. So that's hand in hand. You're not only creating a pipeline of future investment potential, but you're also working with regulators to create an environment that is enabling for future investors to come in.
Okay. And Alex, what is your advice for this? For Ethiopia?
I think Jasiel's provided very sound advice. I think it's an exciting time to recognize that, there's a lot of uncertainty, but actually things are opening up, right? So launching a fintech association indicates that there's some activity that's happening there, that actually you can get some like-minded individuals together and start approaching people like regulators to understand their stance. And we've seen areas like mobile phone companies in Ethiopia being opened up to international investment. You're seeing moves towards mobile money being introduced, so that it is, early stages in the sector in some ways, but actually a really promising stage to be involved and to help shape the future of that. So I think it's super exciting. There will be challenges, but if you can start having early and clear dialogue with regulators and other participants in the financial services sector, that stands you in good stead. And again, as Jasiel was saying, and both Raquel and Alex P were also indicating earlier, if you come together with other like-minded organizations, you'll speak with a louder voice when you're together, but you'll also understand where the issues are that you can work on together, and where you may need to go separately. So I think building a community is really important. But also recognizing that you're at the start of a really exciting journey in Ethiopia, perhaps not the start, but still towards towards the start, and wish you all the luck with its growth.
Okay. Alex P, just very quickly, have you any experience with the fintech industry in Ethiopia that you can provide some advice for this question?
No, I think everything has been said.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, João.
Okay.
Yes, we can
So
wrap up.
yes, that's it. We have 1 minute and 30 seconds, something like that. So please, all of you, a very quick final summarize, a key piece of advice for the fintech industry, 20 seconds for each of you, just to say goodbye and give that advice. Please, you can start, Alex.
Just do it. I'm a big Nike slogan fan. Just do it.
Just do it. Raquel?
I would say that really don't be afraid to talk to people and get as much support as possible.
Okay, thank you. Jasiel?
Continue to grow sustainably, and the future will be bright.
Okay. And Alex?
Continue talking to everyone that you can. I think networking and understanding other people's positions is essential.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you. And I think
What's your
it was
advice, João?
fantastic.
What's your advice as an entrepreneur in the industry?
My advice, I just go for it. As I said, just you say, do it. Walk, talk with everybody, talk with your colleagues, talk with your supported, and talk with your regulator, because I think that's the key point. The regulator must be inside the loop, must be with you to drive the growth of fintech in each country. So thank you very much for all of your support, and I think it was a very interesting panel, and I believe that every challenge that we are facing are more or less common in every country. So yeah, I think that your thoughts and your advices were very well for development of this economy and for the development of fintech industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Huge pleasure.